do the extra 30 minutes. Like it's not going to kill you to stay there for 30 more minutes and hit 30 more putts and 30 more chips. It'll never hurt you to stay 30 more minutes. That's the best one. 30 more minutes is what I would tell myself.
This is The Tournament Code.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us today, Alex. We know kind of your story where you are right now. You're out playing on the Corn Ferry. Before you get there, there's a lot that goes into getting there. And where we start with every guest is kind of the beginning. What got you into the game of golf?
You know, my whole family was pretty well into the game, especially my dad's side. My mom's dad also played, and I kind of grew up when I was younger playing with him a lot. Kept playing with my dad. His family, his sister, his brothers, his mom, his dad. I was never met his dad, my grandfather. He passed before I was born, but that whole side of the family was very into it. So I started playing. I was about knee high, 4 years old, beating balls around the backyard, stuff like that. We had a little 9-holer down the road from my grandparents' house, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, anything that involved me swinging and hitting the ball, I was playing at that age, but golf was always fun.
And so did you start playing tournaments when you were young, or did you figure that out later? And what really got you like saying, hey, I want to play competitive golf?
Yeah, I didn't start playing them super young. I know there's like kids that start playing when they're like 6, 7 years old and stuff like that. That wasn't me. I probably started, I think I remember playing one tournament at a place in like Zanesville when I was maybe like 9 or so. And then when I first started really playing tournaments was probably, there's like a junior city series at the city of Columbus, like Parks and Rec ran, which I grew up at the Muni down the street from my house, and the pro told me I should play those and stuff. And I probably started playing those when I was 12 or 13. And that was probably when I actually really started playing tournament golf. I might have been a year or so younger than that. I don't remember exactly, but it was in that ballpark. Those were pretty easy. They were all just kind of like one days. They were around Columbus and stuff. And, you know, from there I started playing more things, but that was probably the start of all of it.
So at what point did you say, I'm getting pretty good, I want to consider playing college golf?
I always kind of wanted to play college golf once I got to probably about 6th or 7th grade. So what's that, like 13-ish, 12, 13? When I started playing tournaments, it was probably more so the junior high aspect. We had a really good group of guys that I went to high school with, and even was in the 2 years that I was in junior high. And I think that was when I started maybe coming down, like 13, 14, started coming down to those plantation events that I've heard like Ashton and BT and Dorn talk about. I played with BT in like 1,000 of those. That was how, and it's funny that we did that and knew each other, and then went to rival colleges, and, you know, now room together a lot on tour, but played a lot of those, especially around, you know, like UK and Carney Hill. I'm not sure how you guys say it. You guys don't say Louisville right either, but I decided I wanted to play college golf kind of once I realized that I probably wasn't going to play college baseball. And I played baseball until I graduated from high school. I still loved playing baseball, and I wish I would do more baseball related activities. But yeah, it was about then. And I was kind of late to the recruiting process too. I didn't really kind of start that until I was maybe 15 or 16, freshman, sophomore in high school. But that was probably about when I decided that I wanted to pursue that.
Yeah, it looks like from what we know about you that you're a pretty solid high school player. And I know that getting into things late can be kind of an issue. In 2013, I think you were runner-up for the state golf tournament. You know, you had you were the conference player of the year that year. You had a few wins. I think 2011, you won the district tournament. So when it comes to getting recruited and figuring out where you wanted to go, it could be a little bit late, as you mentioned, getting into the game like that. How did you figure out, hey, I want to go play at Marshall. That's the place for me. And what was your experience like?
Boy, that was a process getting to Marshall. So the recruiting process started when I won that district tournament as a sophomore, was when I kind of got some attention. and guys like Ohio State was vaguely interested. I traded an email with Ken at one point, and that was kind of the Ohio scene. Kind of saw that a little bit. And I'll be the first to tell you I wasn't very good in high school. I didn't do anything very impressive in high school. I kind of slapped it around, and I chipped and putted it pretty good. That was kind of my thing. I was always pretty good around the greens, but I slapped it. It was pretty ugly. And so then as soon as they watched me, hit a golf ball with a full swing, they're like, he's probably not going to be that good. The Marshall story is really all thanks to a guy named Jake Miller, who you guys may or may not know is now the head coach at Murray State. He was a senior my freshman year of high school, and I played with him because he was friends with a couple guys on our high school team. To this day, one of my favorite people on planet Earth. We got a new coach come in, I want to say the year before I got there might have been his first year, or maybe the year before that. And he wasn't very well versed in recruiting. And he basically just asked the guys on the team at that point, do you guys know anybody that you think can come in and play? He was late on the recruiting. And myself and a guy named Scott Sapp, who ended up going to Cincinnati. We both went to high school together, and neither of us had committed anywhere. And so that was when our recruiting process at Marshall kind of started. And I'm sure that our coach would kind of agree to this. He kind of dragged it out and was kind of fumbling around with, offering it. We both would have gone there together. And I still think to this day that might be one of Scott's biggest regrets, was maybe not waiting to go there with me. Not that I don't think he liked Cincinnati. He had a great time and all that stuff. And I believe met his future wife while he was there. And so I don't think he regrets any of that. But golf-wise, I think he would have liked to have came back and went to Marshall with me and played together. And I think we would have been really good. But basically that Marshall ended up being my only offer to play Division I college golf. It was either go there. I think I could have gone to Wittenberg, which is in Springfield, or Guilford College, which is down in Greensboro, both Division III programs. And so I kind of jumped on the offer to go play at Marshall. I liked all the guys on the team on my visit. It wasn't, like, hey, I got stuck here. I wouldn't trade my experience there for anything in the world. A lot of my best friends came from my 4 years there. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Got to meet a lot of good guys that I now travel with around the tour too. So
you were a pretty solid player starting out. You averaged 74.3 freshman year, and you averaged 73 the next 2 years. But you made a really, really big jump your senior year. You went from a 73.49 to a 71.24, and you got an automatic bid into the NCAA regionals as an individual. So what allowed you to kind of really make that huge jump towards the end of your career?
So when I was there, I was still that was when I quit playing baseball, obviously getting into college. So I had a lot more time to devote to golf. Not that I was still playing summer ball before then. I might pick up like a weekend here or there with some guys I knew, but I had a lot more time to devote to golf. I was more invested in it. Obviously, I think that shows between like the freshman, sophomore jump. Once I did that, I kind of started identifying, where my game didn't stack up with the rest of the guys. And I mean, Cooper, you guys played with us enough, and I don't know who all you played with on the team, but I mean, we had a bunch of guys who could flat out strike the golf ball, and they hated me my freshman year because I would slap it around Guyan, and I would shoot like 71 with like 10 greens in regulation, and they would hit like 16 greens and shoot like 72 or something stupid. And they'd just get pissed. And so basically I realized that like I don't hit it good enough to go shoot like 64. I could shoot like 68 if I hit it good one day, but like I never shot like 64. And so I want to say it was the winter of my sophomore year. I did a pretty hard dive into kind of changing up my golf swing a little bit. I was a very flat, shallow, laid off slap draw guy, and I wanted to, crisp up some contact. So I worked on getting a little bit steeper, a little bit more descending and all that kind of jazz. And when I did that, it took a little while for me to really get into that. I went from being a draw guy and then eventually turned into a fade guy when I realized that I wasn't going to draw it very well from there. And so the junior year was, I wouldn't call it unsuccessful because I still played some okay golf through my junior year. But then by the time I really got it nailed down was kind of coming out of the spring of my junior year. And then I had a really good AM summer the following year. Really, like, think I finished second in our state AM. Came pretty close to getting in the US AM again, and felt really good going into my senior year with where my golf swing was at, ball striking wise. And then that was when it all kind of pieced together, was going into my senior year. And I mean, was finally striking it really good, and then still had the short game to match it.
What was kind of like the catalyst for making those swing changes? Did you have a coach that you talked to about getting to a certain point with your swing, or was that kind of something that you came up with on your own?
A little bit of both. I've always been a pretty independent swing guy. The instructor that I've worked with for pretty much all of my life back home in Pickerington, we had some swing based stuff and general technical stuff that we worked on when I was younger, but for the most part he was more into teaching me how to play golf than hit golf balls basically. And so we would talk about what I needed to do to get better, and then that was what I thought I needed to do. He concurred, and I mean really it was just basically steepening the plane, more or less club face rotation and steepening the plane. And so I mean I spent a good couple months in our indoor that winter just feeling like I was just raking the golf club like down and left. I mean it felt awful, but it turned into the driver yips at one point, because when you hit so many 7-irons trying to swing like 9 down, you eventually start swinging about 4 down on the driver, and that didn't. So I had to fight that for a little bit, and that was probably also part of the junior year plateau from sophomore year. Was I was playing a driver out of the shop that I could just like keep in the air basically. Then finally, once I kind of balanced the woods back out and got everything going, that was when everything turned kind of nice.
So you kind of talk about practicing a lot in y'all's indoor facility. What would a practice session look like in the middle of winter when kind of all you had to do was hitting into the net?
I think that I don't know if we had a TrackMan at that point yet. Our indoor facility at Marshall at the time, when we started, it was just 2 racquetball courts in our basketball building that were netted up, and we had like a carpeted putting green on the backside of one of them. And so that one was a lot of we like to hang like paper plates on the netting and play like the big break, beat everybody else's paper plates out of the wall. But that was really the only time where I was big into video, just trying to make sure that I was where I was getting the club. And it was just a lot of going in there with your buddies and do a little bit of swing work, and then you do something to entertain yourself. And so then we had a game where we'd tee off from the mat, hit it into the wall, and then it was soft enough where the balls would land that we would then like chip from there into like the little wood carpet putting green and like play golf to all the holes in the putting green that way. That was a pretty popular game. The only thing we had when I was there was we had a TrackMan donated with an iPad and a screen, but we were still just hitting them into a wall. So we put like tape marks up in the wall basically to just aim the TrackMan. And we didn't have it where it would like show the ball flight through the air. It would pop up a 2-dimensional line basically and show you what the golf ball did. It was sweet to us at the time because it was something that we never had before. But in all reality, you're not quite seeing a shot. You're just trying to figure out a swing that makes something do something. That was pretty much it. And then I think our other one, my senior year, got set up into being like, one was then the hitting bay and one was a short game bay. They kind of fitted it out with a turf putting green and stuff, which was nice and a big upgrade for us. So then it was nice to be able to go in there and work on the putting a little bit better than the carpet that was probably 30 years old at that point. So that was a pretty standard work at the indoor. I guess we had our indoor football field built too, and we could hit balls and see about 40 yards of ball flight maybe before we would hit them into the ceiling. So we would go do that once in a while too, but then usually that devolved into us throwing a football around or something like that.
That's cool that you guys had that set up. One thing I had a question about is you said, the strength of your game was putting and short game, which is interesting to me, I get the technique issue maybe was part of that, because a lot of the guys I knew who just played baseball in college have dummy fast golf swings. Like they can't really control it, can't keep it on the planet, but they're pretty good at creating speed. And I know that you're 5'11", 190, so it's pretty strong. When it came to creating speed, was that something you were good at all, or is that something you got better at over time?
Something I got much better at over time. No, I was the dinker my freshman year. I think I might have only hit it further than Jake Miller. We had, I think, 11 or 12 guys on the team, and 10 of them hit it past me. We had another freshman who came in. His name's Jake Appleby, and I remember we went out to play, right when I got to school. It was just me and him and the other freshman. We got to this hole at one of our courses, and it was about 350 downhill, and I hit my driver to about 70 yards, and he flew it on the front edge. And then we both made birdie, and he was like, what the heck? And I was, they different ways to do everything, I guess. But no, that was another thing that, I chased through college too. And I think that, outside of 1 year in college, we had a pretty good weight staff. I mean, my weights fluctuated a lot since my freshman year of college. I want to say my freshman year, I went in at about 170, and I pushed 200 at one point, but it was a pretty strong 200. And then that was kind of tough to maintain. Once the whole speed, that was kind of when the speed revolution started, really. It seemed like when guys, the speed sticks became a thing and all that kind of stuff. And so that was when I, a lot of times once we got that TrackMan 2, it was like trying to figure out how fast you could swing it. And so there'd be, legitimate sessions that we would have in there of just trying to swing it harder, seeing, all right, can I get to 120? Can I get to 122 or something like that? And, it helps also. You kind of put on what I call the rest of your man weight at that point. You kind of thicken out and finish growing and stuff. And so I went from probably cruising, 108 to 110, maybe firing it at 112 my freshman year. And then by the time I was done, I was kind of cruising in the 117-ish and could get it to about 20. Still swinging it kind of hard at the time to get it to 117. And now, I cruise around the same speed now, still about 117, but I have the ceiling of, maybe the mid to upper 120s. So it's a little bit more of a calmer 117, basically. But no, that was definitely something I had to work on. And I came by pretty honestly of, being in the gym and kind of figuring out how to swing the club faster.
How'd you get to getting your top end to be higher 120s? Is it just the gym? Was there more? Because obviously that's something that's happened after college, it sounds like. How did you get to that point? Is there specific stuff that you worked on, or is it just a natural progression?
No, I definitely worked on stuff. I've been really lucky. I had a guy back in Columbus when I was still spending my summers there. He trained me for free at his gym in Gahanna. And he was an ex-MLB pitcher. So his specialization was what he called rotational athletes. So he would train baseball players and fighters and golfers and anybody that had to kind of use the dissociation of hip shoulder kind of twitch muscles and stuff. And then between him and some of the people I had in college, like Josh Chamberlain, he was really good. He works up in Pennsylvania now. I hope he listens to this because I don't talk to him a whole lot, but he's always been really good to me. He hooked me up with a workout plan when I moved to Florida. Kind of just gathering all of that knowledge from those people. I've always been one to pay attention and I never really needed told what to do at any point. I was always pretty happy to go do the work. But I just want to make sure I was doing the right things. And so kind of gathering all of those workouts and all of that stuff from them really helped and kind of keeps me in line down here now. And, I'll kind of steal some things from following people from what's the gym down in West Palm that all the guys train out of with Joey D and Colby Wayne and those guys. I'll steal some of those off Instagram and kind of, intermix a lot of stuff at this point. But I also just would dedicate time on the range to just swinging at it hard. I was like, I don't care where it goes. I'm just going to see how fast I can swing it. I don't care if I hit this ball across the next hole over. if I can swing it 126, like I'm making it easier on myself to swing it 118. So that was kind of the whole process there.
So you came out of college, you had that great senior year, and you turned professional directly after. What did the beginning of your pro career look like?
It started out kind of nice, honestly. I kind of proved to myself that professional golf was an option my senior year. I think I won twice, had a couple other runner-ups. And that was kind of what I had to do to really kind of prove it to, family, coaches, all that kind of stuff, that I should go ahead and try it. I don't know how long they were expecting me to end up playing or anything like that, but, they wanted to be supportive if I wanted to give it a shot. The first thing I played a Monday qualifier for the Wyndham. I got through a pre-qualifier, played the Monday, and I missed by a couple. Went down, I cashed a check at a G Pro. I played, all right, that's one pro event, that's one check. All right, that's cool. Went to Q school that winter, or that fall, I guess, and, finished second at the pre-stage. I got through first stage in Nebraska, and all of a sudden I was 1 week away from having my KFT card. And I was like, this doesn't seem like all that bad. And, then I shoot 72, 74 the first 2 rounds of second stage, and I'm in dead last. Well, I got to go shoot 20 under the next 2 days to get back inside the number. And kind of knew I probably wasn't going to get through unless I did something crazy. But I did go out, and we were playing at Southern Hills that year, and I shot 67, 67. And, there's not a whole lot of pressure on you at that point, because you're not getting through, but, those 2 rounds on that golf course, still taking it seriously, and those were a little bit more morale boosting. And then, I'd moved to Florida for that winter and decided I was going to go play Latin Tour Q school at that point. And I don't know if either of you guys know Davey Jude or not. He was a teammate of mine at Marshall. We both decided to go do it. And we ended up going to Brazil for Q school because the Florida site filled up in apparently under 4.5 minutes that year, because my timestamp was 4:52 and I didn't get in. We go down to Brazil for that Q school, and we play the Olympic course. And man, that golf course is difficult. I think there's some Monday Q tweeted about it at one point. I think I shot 19 over for 3 rounds and also shot 68 one day. Something, or 4 rounds, I'm sorry. 19 over 4 rounds with a 68 or 69 or something. A lot of big numbers getting thrown up down in Rio by yours truly. And that was kind of a quick kick right there. So pretty rocky to start out. And, then the infamous story of Davey and I hashing out the deal kind of happened, at the beginning of that Latin season. So then things kind of got a little easier. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that story or not, but Davey finished 10th that week. So he had full status, or was at least close to full. He was going to get all of the first half of the season. We make a deal. To date, the dumbest idea I've ever had. Can't believe I did this, but I was going to go down to the first 3 Latin events and play the Mondays. And then if I didn't get through, the deal was I was going to caddy for him for $75 a day. So I go to Panama. It goes Panama, Buenos Aires, Santiago, the first 3 events. So I booked the travel, it was all that good stuff. I go to Panama. There's a week off between Panama and Buenos Aires. So Panama was standalone. I go to Panama, the qualifiers in Panama City, go down a couple of days early, play the practice rounds. I'm rooming with Sean Bush, who's an Ohio State guy that was playing down there too. And the night before, I get food poisoning. From probably about the 1 o'clock hour to the 5 o'clock hour, I think it came out of one end for about every 20 minutes. I was walking around the Panama City streets looking for a pharmacy. It was a Sunday qualifier that week for some reason. So on Sunday, everything's closed. I almost puked in an Uber trying to go to a pharmacy, ended up buying unmarked pills in a paper bag for about 76 cents or something like that, hoping they were right. I took them, stopped throwing up, didn't play, couldn't caddy, went to go fly home, and my passport got stolen somewhere along the lines that week also. Really cool weekend, pretty stellar stuff. And somehow ran into somebody at the airport that managed to get me on a flight home. And then, so I go home, I have no passport, and I'm flying back to Buenos Aires in like 11 days was the time frame or something along those lines. So I had to drive to Miami, got a new passport. I got there the day before the flight to Buenos Aires. I fly down there, play the qualifier. I got in, but I missed the cut. So then my flight to Santiago isn't until Sunday night. I'm not changing it at this point. It's too expensive. I caddy for Davey on the weekend, make my $150, fly to Santiago, get in at about 2 in the morning. My tee time's at 9 for the Monday qualifier. Get through that Monday also, and then almost go wire to wire in Santiago. I think I shot the course record on Thursday, was leading, shot like 3 under the next round, or 2 under the next round, 3 under the next round. Playing the final group on Saturday with Joaquin Neiman and Alex Rocha. Shoot 66 on Saturday, and I got a 2-shot lead going into Sunday. And played, pretty solid on Sunday. I think I shot 69. Unfortunately, John Summers caught me. He shot 65, I believe, on Sunday. Still hit to date one of the best shots I've ever hit to try to force a playoff. I hit 3-wood into the 18th green on a par 5 to about 10 feet for eagle. And then he hooped a 40 or so footer for eagle before I could even putt it to close me out. So, but I doubled my net worth that week in my bank account with that money, and basically was going to reshuffle into status in a couple weeks. Unfortunately, I had to miss I got in the next week, but then I had to skip 3 events because I wasn't going to get status until after the 8th event. So I was basically resolved to either Monday qualifying or hoping I got sponsors invites, but hard to get sponsors invites down there. So yeah, that was the first 6 months of my professional life. I came home from that trip and slept for about 3 days straight, and then kind of rolled around the Latin season until getting to the KFT. So
that's a pretty topsy-turvy start, and I can imagine for a lot of guys that could be enough to say just after that first couple of weeks, say, hey, this really isn't for me. Like I'm dying down here the first week, not even able to do anything. Next week, missed the cut. What really drove you? Were you only going to play those 3 events and then actually go caddy, or would you have actually ended up doing that? Because it sounds like you got a drive where you get going and you probably got to stay going.
Yeah, I had only planned on doing those 3. I had a flight booked home from Santiago back to Miami and Orlando, and so that was the plan, was just play those 3 and go. And then I get into another event in Argentina the following week. I think I dropped like $1,500 on changing all those flights or something like that. It was pretty expensive, but I wasn't going to pass up a tournament that I didn't have anything else to play in. So I'm going to go play. It would have been tough to say if I don't, get that done in Santiago and have that week. I don't know what the plan would have been. Probably would have just came back to the US and maybe played some mini tours or something and, waited around for Q school and whatnot. But, yeah, thankfully it happened the way it did. Latin tour, I thought, was, a really good experience. See a lot of cool places, but I think the golf kind of speaks for itself too. You play a lot of really good golf courses and kind of learn a lot about your game down there. So I'm glad it happened the way it did. Maybe not necessarily, the passport and the food poisoning part, but, I'd much rather have, gotten that job done down there than figured it out otherwise.
That's a really cool way to start your pro career. And we talked about how you made a big jump in your senior year of college, and you made another really big jump in 2021 in your pro career when you won the Colorado Open, which you made $100,000 at. And then you medaled at first stage of Korn Ferry Q School and second stage of Korn Ferry Q School. So you really, really caught a heater that summer. And what allowed you to just get in that mindset and play such great golf in 2021?
So ironically, about maybe 6 weeks before Colorado, we had 3 Latin events, maybe 5, a few weeks before Colorado, there were 3 Latin events. But I was living down in Florida that summer. I think I stayed for the full year for the first time that summer. I actually had a pretty bad mishap with my back that probably could have come close to just ending my career. I mean, we were having, a get together at the house I was staying at, and somebody pulled me off of a hot tub ledge, and the back, my spine, lower spine, hit the curb of a pool. It was pretty ugly, and I went. Luckily, I didn't break anything, but the pictures are pretty gross. And I really didn't even know how without a Toradol shot before Fort Lauderdale, which was a week after it happened. I don't think I would have played Fort Lauderdale. But because I was able to play and move around, it kind of allowed me to get it to heal a little quicker. I kind of had to figure out how to swing the golf club without all of my movement. And I don't know if that turned into like just my golf swing getting a little tighter or something, but Fort Lauderdale didn't go great. I was in some pain still, but I flew to Columbia the following week. And I played pretty good down there. It helped it wasn't a very long golf course, so it wasn't a lot of big swings with driver or anything. A lot of irons, hybrids, and stuff off the tee. And, played pretty good there. I think I finished like 8th. And then we had Ecuador the week after, which is a golf course that I love playing at. Love that event on the Latin Tour. And I finished like 13th there, something along those lines. And then by then, back still looked ugly, but it was feeling a little better and stuff. I think we had a week or two off, and then we went and played the Latin final event, which was at PGA Riviera Maya. And that golf course is hard. It is like 18 holes of lost ball on both sides, and just, you never get to take a break out there. Playing some of those courses, can really prepare you. And so, I think I finished like 25th or something down there in Mexico. And the Colorado Open was literally the week after Mexico. And so I flew back up and basically flew in one night and then was flying to Colorado the next morning. And I'll tell you what, nothing makes a golf course look wider and the ball going straighter than playing a golf course with a bunch of hallways and then going to altitude and playing a golf course where you can hit it everywhere. I'm sure that probably helped a little bit, but I was playing some good golf and I liked what I was doing. I got out to Colorado, and that golf course just set up pretty nice for me, I guess. Felt pretty good about my golf swing and what it had developed into after the back injury and stuff, and got out there and played pretty good for the first 3 rounds. I don't think I did anything special the first 3 rounds. I think it was like 67, 66, 68 or something, which on that golf course, I don't know if you guys have ever been out there or not, but like you can kind of get it going out there. There's a couple short 4s and you can get the par 5s. So you shoot 4 under, like it's a pretty normal round if you're playing decent. But then the last day, putter got warmed up and that helped a lot. And I still didn't even think I did enough to win when I finished. I thought, somebody was getting to 20 or something along those lines. So it was even a surprise to me that I didn't end up, either maybe finishing second or third or getting to a playoff or something. Winning outright didn't seem like an option when I finished. But that was a huge week for me, and, obviously a big confidence boost that whatever I'm doing, is obviously good enough to compete with some of the best players around and, do a job that we're trying to do. I was staying sharp, played a mini tour event in Blacksburg before. I always love playing the week before events. I like to play a couple weeks in a row. So I played a swing thought event at the time in Blacksburg before first stage. And I think I lost in a playoff to RJ Kerr there. I think I shot like, I don't remember what, 216 would be par for 3. So I was 18 under for those 3 rounds. Go down to Mobile and, just saw that course really well, rolled it nice. Had one round where I got really hot with the putter, and I think I shot like 61 or something, which, that's a pretty good way to get through first stage with one of those rounds. Did the same thing, went to the Dothan second stage course, played before second stage at Southern Hills. I think I finished 3rd there. Shot, a handful under for those 3 days, and then went to second stage at Southern Hills, and just it seemed like for the better part of those, I don't know how long that is, like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks at that point. When you just look up and the ball's kind of just going where you're looking and seeing greens right, you just kind of wake up and everything makes sense. It's a weird thing to feel, but especially for that long, a weird thing to feel when you go out to the golf course all the time like that. But that was pretty much it. I just was kind of knew what all my clubs were doing and knew where the ball was coming off the putter, and just it was strange. I think about it all the time. Is you're like, you can't stay like that forever. It just never stays like that forever. Unfortunately, you wish it would. So I'm kind of working my way. You're just always trying to find your way back to that, and that's something I'm working on currently. I feel like we're getting close. So I wish I had a better answer for your question about what happened, but the injury happened, but I wouldn't attribute it to the injury. I would just say that you kind of find that comfort zone with all of your stuff, and golf just seems to make sense, I guess.
Tell us a little bit about your difference now playing out on the Corn Ferry compared to Latin America, where you're traveling around a lot more. You got your foreign countries, you got all sorts of risks, where now it's a little bit more stable environment and you have a little bit more going for you.
Yeah, definitely easier to travel around the KFT and stuff. You hear a lot of people who can't deal with the Latin tour. It's obviously expensive, and the purses aren't, probably what they need to be to compensate guys for going down there for as good as the talent pool is down there. But I mean, the tour does a pretty good job of finding cities and areas that are, stable enough and safe enough for guys to go to, where they don't really have to worry about, some of the general concerns that people have down there. You got to go looking for trouble if you really want to find it, honestly. And I've probably tried once or twice, on a weekend where I might not have been playing. Yeah, you gotta kind of get off the beaten path to really get into some trouble for the most part when I was down there. With the KFTs, much easier. You're booking domestic flights. Your passport isn't getting stamped everywhere. You're not dealing with currency exchanges, although sometimes those are in your favor, especially in Argentina right now. It's a lot easier to kind of maintain your general well-being. You don't have to eat basically a meat and fries every meal, because you're trying, guys tend to stay away from the ice, and you're not drinking tap water, and you're not, usually eating, vegetables washed in tap water that aren't cooked, essentially, unless you're at somewhere nice where that they're filtering everything out. So yeah, it's always nicer up here, with it just being cheaper, and there's no language barrier for a lot of guys. Like, I can speak a little bit of Spanish, but it's definitely not good enough to do everything I need to do down there. So yeah, the KFT's definitely a blessing when you get to the fact of flying from Wichita to Maine or something, or Greenville to Wichita. It's obviously, seems like a pain, but it's definitely not as much of a pain as flying from Orlando to Miami to Buenos Aires, switching airports in Buenos Aires, and then flying to Cordoba or something along those lines. So you learn to deal with a lot down there, and it makes this seem pretty simple.
So last year you played your first full season on the Corn Ferry Tour. What'd you learn from playing that full season that you're going to change for this year? Or did you feel like, I did pretty well, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing?
No, there's definitely a lot of things that I needed to work on. A couple big things was really working on driving the ball better. Week in and week out, you watch guys just step up to drivers or T-balls and just, it's like one look, hit it, and they're off walking because they know where it's going. It's hard to contend any week if you're not driving it in play. And I struggled with that a lot last year, trying to probably work the driver both ways, trying to hit a lot of drivers. That'll be I've made a vow to myself about 5 months ago that I will never intentionally draw a driver ever again. That ball is cutting all the time. If I need to draw something, I'm hitting 3-wood, and it is what it is. So that was one big one. I've done some mental work with Bob Winters, Dr. Bob Winters. He's been a big help, just kind of reassuring that, I don't need to do anything special. I've been a pretty good iron player, pretty good wedge player, good around the greens, but also, trying to just make the game simpler. I stopped and saw Jake Miller on the way back from Missouri last year, and we talked about kind of some decade type of stuff where I would try to draw a 6-iron into a back left pin, trying to hit like the right shot to get it back into a pin, when I could just hit a normal 6-iron to 25 feet short right of a hole, and like I don't practice back foot drawing a 6-iron very often. So why would I try to do it in competition? So, just trying to be more content with, hitting 170-yard shots 30 feet and, just kind of relying on my putter a lot more, trying to make the game a little simpler and keep my bad weeks to T45s instead of miscuts, basically. Even if you're not hitting it great and you apply all the right stuff, you could have not your best stuff and maybe finish, top 20 or something like that. I mean, really my big thing this year was just being kind of grateful to be playing. I mean, I was in a position where I didn't know I was going to get to play this year. And, I did the same thing I did last year, which made the cut in Bogota. And I think I finished 20th last year. I finished 19th this year, something like that. And, those reshuffle points are big. And I kind of took the KFT for granted last year. The way I got there, it just seemed like, wasn't that hard. And, finals kind of kicked me around a little bit, missing top 40 by one. But, I knew I was going to get into events this year, not knowing and, realizing like I could have to go back to play the Latin Tour. I could be grinding around mini tours and stuff. I'm not going to take having that status for granted, and I'm going to do everything to make sure that I keep it or graduate to the big tour. And that was probably my biggest takeaways after last year and the way everything ended.
That is cool. I know it's tough. As we said, you're out there, you're playing for money, you're playing for status. There's a lot of pressures that can come with it. And I can imagine that it's easy to be nervous. When have you felt nerves when playing golf, and what do you do to kind of at least keep them as calm as possible?
I don't mind feeling nerves because to me, if I feel nerves, that just means that I care about what's going on. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be nervous. And if I didn't care, I shouldn't be doing it. The best thing to me that calms nerves is knowing that you've prepared yourself. And so I felt incredibly nervous in Bogota. I got my opportunity and I was like, well, now I got to do something with it. I had my opportunity to play my way in Florida and I didn't. Had my opportunity to play my way in at finals. I didn't. I even flew down and got in at 3:00 the morning of on Friday before that tournament to play the qualifier on Friday. And I had my opportunity to play my way in there and I got in a playoff and I didn't get through. And so, I got my opportunity and fortunately, I'd done a lot the last couple weeks of putting myself in competitive moments and figuring out what I was doing to make sure that I was prepared, and did a lot of the mental work. And I think the mental work was probably even more important because I didn't play very good on Saturday. I was playing with BT and him and I are both in the same spot, being conditional guys. And that was our first made cut and we needed the points. We needed the reshuffle. And, I didn't play very good and I was 1 over through 10 and, was kind of slipping away from an opportunity to win a golf tournament. And I could have went pressing, but the mental work I did made myself realize that, I don't have to do it off a tee or I don't have to do it here. I can, try to make some putts or, get shots. I still had Sunday and, that helped a lot. And, I ended up shooting 1 over, but then I ended up shooting 3 under, I think 3 under on Sunday. And it gets me into a top 25, which exempts me into Savannah. But even then, you're still coming down the stretch there. And I actually had to birdie the 18th hole to get into the top 25. And so I, stepping up to a 7-iron, I had to hit into a green that, pin was in a spot where if I hit it long right, it's going in the water. It's a tough 2-putt from the front of the green. And I don't really want to try to be getting up and down. You step up into a shot like that and, your whole season essentially feels like it's riding on this swing. And, you just kind of live with the fact like, all right, well, I've hit this many 7-irons, in the last couple of weeks. And, when I hit them this way and I'm going to aim here and give myself this target and trust that I did the work to hit it there. And, sure enough, I hit it on front left corner of the green. And then, you got 60 feet uphill. And if you hit it 8 feet by, it might roll in the water. And that's not real comfy either, knowing that you got to make 4 to do it. And, you sit there and you're like, well, I've 2-putted from 60 feet a lot in my life. Why is this one any different? And, you go through all your same progressions and stuff and you try to keep your routine the same and, trust your preparation. And as long as you can do that and fall back and feel assured in what you've practiced, then usually that's the best way to kind of deal with those nerves, it seems like, at least in my experiences.
No, I believe it. And that's something that we've heard from a lot of other guests. You just got to kind of stick with the process. We have just a few more questions here, so we'll wrap up in a second. One thing that I wanted to know is what's something about tournament golf or professional golf that most people don't realize?
I think a lot of people don't realize that guys like hit bad shots and don't always have their best stuff, because everybody that watches golf on TV only sees all the good shots that people hit. That's the one thing that we talk about all the time is like, guys who are scrambling around the cut line and stuff. And, they've got their like C+ game at best that week. And, maybe a couple things didn't go their way. And, those guys are just grinding, trying to make a check that week. They're seeing if maybe they can do something on the week. Like you've seen plenty of guys who play terrible Thursday, Friday for them. And, they somehow scrape it out, make cut on the number, and then shoot 10 under on the weekend. And all of a sudden, they finish 25th and make themselves a nice check or something like that. That kind of stuff people don't see. They just see the guy that's the 4 guys that are leading that are just stuffing shots all week and driving it perfect. But then, I don't think that anybody ever appreciates how good professionals' short games are. I mean, most guys could get up and down out of a garbage can if you ask them to. I mean, it's pretty silly. I just played with Dominic Bazzelli in the Puerto Rico Monday yesterday, and he hit a shot that I've never even seen before. And he hit like 110-yard like flop cut punch out 8-iron that had he zipped it like 20 feet back and sideways on a green from like 100 yards. And it was just the silliest thing I've ever seen. Those two things, which is also why I practice short game a lot, because as good as you think your short game is, somebody out there's is better, and you can get it better. But yeah, just how good guys are around the greens, and then how good guys are at managing golf courses and tournaments without their best stuff, I think is two very impressive things in the professional game.
That is very cool. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. The last question we ask every guest is, if you could go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself just one thing, what would that one thing be?
Can it be 2 things? Is that okay?
Yep, that's cool.
All right. The first thing is you need to learn to take care of your body at all times. I just figured it out at 27, which I think is, probably earlier than a lot of people figured it out, but trying to make sure that you put all the right stuff in, because you can't perform eating, fast food burgers and fry. And I know, there's many tour guys who probably, have to. And I was one of those people at one point too, but like Chipotle is only a couple more dollars and it's a lot better for you. Taking care of your body, that especially, once you get into college and stuff, and, maybe only have 6 beers instead of 8 or something like that. I don't know. But the other one would be, it's hard to say that I would tell this to myself because I was pretty good at it, because it's always been what entertains me. So if it wasn't even just me, if it was anybody else, that the whole short game thing, you got to be good around the greens. You should spend all your time around there, because everybody hits it. Everybody at this level hits it good. Everybody, in college hits it good. Everybody at the pro game hits it good. And you've got to love being able to get the ball in the hole, because on a day when you don't hit it good, you got to love getting the ball in the hole. Hit more putts, hit more putts, hit more chips. Do the extra. I'm going to backtrack all of it and just say, do the extra 30 minutes. Like it's not going to kill you to stay there for 30 more minutes and hit 30 more putts and 30 more chips. It'll never hurt you to stay 30 more minutes. That's the best one. 30 more minutes is what I would tell myself. Excellent.
Well, we appreciate it. If people are interested in finding you on social media, learning more about you, where can they reach out to you at?
Instagram is AC Weiss _5, and Twitter is AC Weiss5. Both of those are options. A little more active on Instagram, trying to up that a little bit. I'm sure that people, not that I'm a huge content guy or, an amazing follow, but some people care to see what I'm doing. So trying to work on that a little bit better, but feel free to reach out to me on there. I'll usually respond to anybody that's saying anything nice.
Perfect. We'll give Alex a follow. And then if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. As always, you can find us on Instagram at The Tournament Code and on Twitter at Tournament Code. We appreciate you listening to us and look forward to diving in deeper to what it takes to play elite tournament golf.